Today we are going to start with the new concept of C++, that is virtual function. Now what is virtual function? Suppose if you are using the inheritance concept, okay, and in that inheritance concept, one base class is there and one derived class is there. If base class and derived class both are having the same function, okay, suppose let's say my derived base class is the person and derived class is a student, and both are having one common function, that is a get data. Okay, means get data function is available in the person class as well as in the student class. So we can say that my function is the virtual function. Okay, so in that case the function is in a base class is declared as a virtual using the virtual keyword. Means before that function name, just we need to use the virtual keyword, so that function will become my virtual function. Understood? This is a very simple concept of the virtual function. Now, in the starting only, we have learned that there are two types of polymorphism. First is a compile time and runtime. In compile time, there are two types that we have already learned, that is function overloading and operator overloading. Okay. Now in runtime, there is a virtual function is there. See, why it is called as a runtime polymorphism? Because which function is to be executed? Because same function is available in the base class as well as in the derived class. So which function is to be executed, that will be decided at the runtime. That's why it is called as a runtime polymorphism. Okay, we'll see one program of this. Okay, simple program I'm writing here. Then I'm defining here my base class, that is class person. In that I'm taking one variable, let's say int number, suppose contact number. Okay, and then in public section I'll mention one function, that is get data, point get data, and in that I'm going to accept the value for this number. So right here C in number. Okay, so I'm accepting the data as well as I'm displaying the same here. Okay, I have declared only one member function in the class person. Okay, now this is my base class. Now I'm going to declare a derived class. Okay, now how to declare a derived class? Do you remember the syntax of it?
Ma'am, extends or implements?
Exactly, extends. Okay, so I'll mention here class students. Okay, class students extends Okay, extends person. So if I use the keyword extends, it means that student is a derived class of the person class. So person will be my base class. Okay, now in this also, okay, I have declared same variable, that is int number, and then in public section void get data. Okay, now same function names are there. Okay, get data function is there in the derived class as well as in the base class. Okay, this is what class declaration is done here. Okay, now I am going to create a object for this. Now always remember, when you are going to create a object, okay, so object will be always created for the derived class. We don't create it is the for the base class. It doesn't mean that we cannot create that, but what is the logic behind this? Means why we create an object for the derived class only? Because if you create an object for derived class, so that class is means that object will be going to access all the feature of the base class as well as the derived class. But if you create an object for derived base class only, so that base class object will not going to accept the feature of the derived class. So if you create the object for the derived class, it is going to accept the feature of base class as well as the derived class, right? So generally we create an object for the base class only. So here I am writing void main, and inside that void main I am creating the object. What is the syntax for object creation? Do you remember? Yes.
Student dot
Student dot is not there. Student simple class name space object name. So here student S1 I have created. So S1 is the object created for the derived class student, right? Now if I write S1 dot get data. See, as I said, S1 is the object of the derived class, and since being an object of derived class, it can access the member function of the derived class as well as the base class. So if I mention the S1 dot get data, then there will be a confusion. Which function it is accessing, whether this person's void get data or that student void get data, right? So to avoid this confusion, means if you are using the same function in both derived class and base class, so in that case, in the base class we are going to mention your function as a virtual function using the keyword virtual, right? So just before this function, I'll mention here virtual. So this become my virtual function. So when I write s1 dot get data, it is not going to access your virtual function. It is going to access your derived class. But again, if it is a derived class function, we cannot access it directly. So here what we are going to do, see, first create an object for base class. Okay. Along with this, also create an object for the derived class as well as for the base class. So here I am going to create one more function, person p1. Okay, and along with this student s1 and person p1, I am going to create one object, but that object is not a normal object. It will be a pointer object. Okay, so here student s1 star ptr, means star ptr is the object, but here I have mentioned star, so star means it is a pointer, so this is a pointer object. Now if I want to access this get data for the s1, what I'm going to do, see, first mention this PTR is going to hold the address of S1. Okay, now PTR is holding the address of S1, and then I'll write PTR arrow get data. Now here the get data function will be called, which is available in the student, because PTR is holding the address of S1 and PTR is now calling the get data. So this get data will be for the S1. Now suppose I want to call the get data which is present in the person class. So I have to mention, I have to add this, I have to initialize PTR to the address of P1. Okay, and then if I write PTR arrow get data, so now it is going to call your get data function, which is the virtual one. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't understand this. Could you explain it again?
Yeah, sure. See, do you understand this part, this much? Class
Yes, ma'am. The
creation,
first part,
you
ma'am, the
understood?
blue box, first blue box I understood.
Okay,
This,
fine.
the main function onwards, I didn't understand.
Okay, fine. See, now here in inheritance, okay, since you don't have that inheritance concept in the practical, okay, I have not taken any program on that. But when you are going to create an object in the inheritance program, so you are always going to create an object for the derived class. What is the reason behind it? Because if you create the object for the derived class, so that object can access whatever present in the derived class as well as in the base class. Understood? Clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay. So in this case, if I mention only S1, suppose, if I mention only S1, that is student S1, and then S1 dot get data. So what happened? The S1 will be created for the student, but student is my derived class for the person class. So when you write S1 dot get data, it is going to access both the functions, right? It is going to access, suppose if I write student S1, and then if I write S1 dot get data. Okay, so here it is accessible, means it is going to execute two things simultaneously, but which is not possible, right? Correct? Because get data is available in the base class as well as in the derived class. So if you go with the normal way of calling the member function, so there will be a confusion. Okay, so what we are going to do in this, first create one object for the base class. Okay, first create an object for the base class as well as for the derived class. Create. So when you create an object for the base class and derived class, so that is the student S1 and person P1, right? Along with that, I have created one object, I have created one pointer object. Pointer object means what? See, what is a normal pointer? It is going to hold the address of variable. So to hold the address of object, we require the pointer object. Understood?
ma'am.
Huh?
So, ma'am, this pointer which we have declared is holding the address of the S1 object, right?
Yes. See, at the third line, it is going to hold the address of S1. And then we call PTR arrow get data. So it is going to call your this function, the get data function, which is available in the S1. Okay.
Which is the derived class.
Derived class. Okay. In the next line, okay. See, I have declared that PTR is equal to address of P1. Now it is holding the address of P1. Correct? See, this is a normal rule. Na? If you put the another value in the one thing, the first one will get replaced.
Yes,
right?
ma'am, correct.
Correct. So here also PTR address of P1. So when you write, when this compiler will execute PTR equal to address of P1, definitely it is going to hold the address of P1. Okay. Then next line PTR arrow get data. So at that time, it is going to call the function which is available or which is present in the person. But when this is possible, if you make any function as a virtual function. Okay, so how to make your function virtual? Using the keyword virtual. That's it. Understood? And this program, hello, understood?
Ma'am, what does the arrow signify? The arrow syntax?
Arrow syntax, if you want to call the member function along with the object, then we use dot operator, right? But when you are going to call any member function along with the pointer object, okay, so we have to use the arrow. We cannot use the dot operator. For arrow, use the hyphen and greater than sign, so that become your arrow.
Okay, ma'am, understood.
Okay, so this is the virtual function. If you want to take the screenshot of this, you can take it. Okay. See, here I have given one example that is class A. Okay. Class A is there. Okay. Then in class A, one data member is there, X. Then I have declared one function that is show, and then I have mentioned the base class. Okay. Then class B, this operator, and then public A. Okay. Then mention the derived class. So sorry. You cannot use that extend here. In the program we have used extend keyword, no? So that extend is not available. Extend is work in a Java. Extend we cannot use. You instead of extend, we'll use this colon. Okay, so class B colon public A. Clear?
Okay, ma'am.
Yes.
And then the main part is same. In the main, declare one
Miss,
object
can you
for
please explain this part again?
which one?
This colon.
Okay, if you want to declare any derived class for the base class, suppose class A is my base class, okay, and I want to declare one derived class, let's say class B. So I'll mention the colon, then public and A. So this is the syntax. In the last lecture also I have given the syntax for this to declare the your derived class. The syntax for the derived declaration is class keyword, then your derived class name, okay, then colon, then visibility mode, it can be public or private, but if you mention it private, it will goes into the private section, so better way mention it into the public. After that, mention the base class name. Base class name. So this is the syntax of declaring a derived class. Okay, so your class B colon and public A. So this is the virtual function example. So here void show is there, in both are having the same function name. So that's why I have mentioned class A as a virtual. Clear?
Yes, miss.
Okay. Now rules for the virtual function. In paper also they might ask the question about this. Okay, this is the most probably asked question. It is repeatedly asked question, that is a write a rules for the virtual function.
For how many marks?
4 marks. If 4 marks, then they are expecting 8 rules. Okay, if it is for the 3 marks, then there will be 6 points is expected. 6 points are expected. Okay, see.
Okay.
Okay, now these are the rules. First is a virtual function must be a member of some class. Definitely, if you want to mention any function as a virtual, it must be a part of the any class. Then they cannot be a static member. You cannot make it static. Okay, we have learned static member function, static member or static variable. Do you remember that? Static member function and static data members. Using the static, we can declare any variable as a static.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Right? Okay, so it cannot be a static member. They are accessed by using the object pointer. If you want to access it, we have to use the object pointer. Normal object cannot access the virtual function. Now virtual function can be a friend of, means it cannot be a friend function. Friend function we are going to learn in the next lecture. Okay, so it can be a friend function. Virtual function in a base class must be defined even though it is not used. If you are not going to use virtual function in the base class, okay, but still you have to define it. Okay, but if you are not going to execute it, then how you are going to mention it? See, write this part virtual show, okay, void show, and this part is not required. You can keep this bracket empty. Now prototype of the base class version of the virtual function and all derived class version must be identical. Prototype means what? This. If here it is void, then here also it must be void. If these brackets are blank, then this bracket must be blank. So both must be identical. Then we cannot have virtual constructor if we are using the, see, constructor is also a member function, but we cannot make our constructor as a virtual function. Okay, right? Now a base pointer can point to any type of derived object. The reverse is not true. We cannot use a pointer to the derived class to access the object of the base type. And when the base pointer is only relative to its base type. Virtual functions are defined in the base class and they need not to be redefined in the derived class. Means if you are using the derived, if you are using